And welcome back to 12th Man. Delighted to have the King of Comore and the Bolton, Brendy King. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
No bother. We're going to be talking about your beloved Manchester United and after the new title favourites. We're going to be looking back at Chelsea and Man City. Looking back at Liverpool's defeat against Southampton. Looking back at Arsenal's 3-1-3 in a row over Christmas. And then we're also going to touch, because Brendy's on, we had a wee bit of disagreement with who the league's best player was. And we're also going to be telling you who we think our best 11 is in the league as well. So a wee bit of fun towards the end of the show. But for me, there is only one place they start, and that is with, well, they're not top of the League 8. They're joint top, or whatever you want to call it, or second. But at the moment, we'll have a big chance to go top when they play Burnley, their game in hand, next week. So, Brendy, just want to summarise Manchester United season for so far. How impressed have you been? And has it surprised you in the slightest of how well they've been doing this year?
Hasn't surprised me about them, but it surprised me how inconsistent everybody's been. I think there's definitely a wee bit of a shift in the mentality with United, but like last season, the only thing I can sort of compare it to is Liverpool's charge last year, where every team under Liverpool were dropping points left, right, and centre, and Liverpool were just an absolute winning machine.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time in the whole season where there's actually been a potential gap, but then Liverpool slipped up again last night. But United, they're hanging on. I'm surprised at how close they are. But they've definitely improved from last year.
I think we've obviously we've got a wee bit of a break this week. We've got the League Cup now this week. We're going to be chatting about that later on. We've got the FA Cup as well coming up this weekend. So there's a wee bit of a break until midweek next week when the Premier League returns. But Liverpool don't play. They don't play to the following week. That game week's been split. United actually play the following week too, but because United's game against Burnley was postponed at the start of the season, they play that game. So they'll be playing 2 midweeks in a row. And between that big game at Anfield. So Liverpool's next game in the league will be against Manchester United. Now, if United were to win that game against Burnley, now you'd expect them to win it. Burnley away, it's never going to be easy, especially a night game. Probably going to be cold. And they're starting to find a wee bit of consistency at home, albeit against teams down in the bottom of the league. But you know what you're going to get. That's going to be difficult. But you always feel if you get that first goal, it's a game you'll win. And if you were to win that, you'd be going to Anfield with that 3-point lead, having played the same amount of games, and it puts massive pressure on Liverpool. They want to at least not lose that game. If he's already won that game, that's 6 points behind. And he's a play, and you have to, they still have to go to Old Trafford as well in the second half of the season. So at the moment, it's a sticky time for Liverpool, but that's surely now psychologically that's a massive chance for United to try and put their stamp on this title race.
100%. But I think every game and every sort of situation is presented by them this year. It's an example. They see what they're made of. The Aston Villa match the other night, as soon as Villa got that equaliser, I was like, right, here we go. It's going to be a tight push. And straight away they went and got that absolute stonewall penalty.
What do you think about that? What do you think about that penalty?
Hey, penalties are. I just think all the penalties, like it's. You don't know what you're watching anymore. You don't know what's going to be given. Like there was one last night with Manny, and I thought that was an absolute penalty. But I was glad it wasn't.
Do you know what the difference between the two are, right? And I sort of had a look at this morning. And I've been looking. I watched all of Darren McGallagher. Now he winds me up at times because some of the stuff becomes like he's ridiculous. He was on that ref watching Sky Sports News. But see if the referee had a blue whistle, I think give Liverpool a penalty, that wouldn't have been overturned. Same way the VAR wouldn't go back now and give it, even if because there has to be substantial evidence, so clear and obvious error for it to be turned over. Now, if you look at I don't think the United one against Villa was a penalty. I thought at the time never a penalty. But when I seen the replays, I just knew it was going to be overturned because it's hard to know where the contact came from. To me, it looks like Pogba trips himself, but there has been bits of analysis where there's been the player, I can't even mind who the defender was, and I did the contact first. If you slow it down and look at it so many times, it's so hard and conclusive. Therefore, when the VAR looks at that, it's not a clear and obvious error, and therefore he will not overturn it. So it is all about, you almost feel if you get a penalty, right, by the referee's whistle, unless there's absolutely zero contact, there's no chance it's going to get overturned. And the same way, see, unless there's a really bad error by a referee, and same as like the player comes on and gets completely wiped out, and the referee says no, that's the only way it'll be over. The referee might go back, and the VAR might say, look, you made a massive mistake there. There's a massive bit of contact. You're going to have to go and look at it. So for me, I think the threshold's far too high in terms of for overturning penalties and then going back and giving them. If it's, it has to be a massive, massive error. If it's tight, it'll not come down to the opinion. It'll come down to, well, he's give the first decision. I haven't got enough there to overturn it.
I just think you don't know what you're watching anymore. And like you could be watching something and you're always looking at it and going, no, that there's going to be brought back, or it might be brought back, and then it's not. And then another match, then the exact same thing happens, and then it's brought back.
You panic at times. You panic at times, big time.
I panic, but it's. I just think it's. You just can't tell. It keeps everyone guessing.
That's the big argument. There's no consistency by referees at times. You could look at different incidents throughout the season, and they're very similar, but there's different outcomes, which is something they need to sort out next year. And I think that's why people are against VAR, because of the. But I think it's hard to blame it. It's not the technology; it's the referees. I think the standard of refereeing's dropped massively in the league. Some of the stuff that's happening, and some of the things that the referees miss, and then when they get a chance to look at it again, they still stick with the same decision. There's far too much protection going on, and they should be made. I think now they come out after a game and explain why they give a certain decision, and then at least you can understand a bit. It's the whole atmosphere, and I just don't get it at all.
No, they always should have to come out and explain, but it's for even watching the BT Sport, the thing with Robbie Savage, the goal show on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And they've got a referee sitting there giving analysis. Trying to tell ex-players, trying to explain football, and then your man, what do you call him, Clattenburg was on then the other night, and him trying to just keep them out. They're referees. That's whenever referees are brought on, they give analysis. They tell former players the rules and how it should be played. That just tells you how messed up the game is.
The problem we have now is it's not going to come back out of football. It's in there to stay. It's not going to be brought back out. There's no chance it'll be brought back out. They're going to have to try it.
I would take a Man United relegation and get VAR done with.
That's how bad you're against it.
It's destroying football.
I know.
I don't care.
Thank for anybody.
Watching a good match. For me.
Thank anybody that's played a game. I'll feel so strongly against it. The one thing where I do think it does work, sometimes, I'm not talking about the wee toenails and fingernails that are offside and stuff, but if there is a clear offside, that is where it can come in. We've seen a few over the last couple of years. I think the most notable one, do you mind the goal Arsenal got against United at Old Trafford? I think it was last season, where Aubameyang was about 5 yards onside, and it would have been disallowed because the linesman flagged. Stuff like that, that is where it can be useful. But there's far too many penalties. Now it seems to be subjective decisions, and there's too much protection of referees. So now it is something that needs fixed at the end of the season, and hopefully it does improve. But I think it's no better than it was last year, despite them saying that they think it does improve. Now, since you brought it up, penalties, Manchester United do seem to get a lot of them. I looked this morning. I heard Klopp. I don't know why it was brought up last night. To be honest, I was working, so I was only catching up with the football news last night, and I did see something about Klopp saying something about United getting penalties. I'm not sure why that come up. I don't know whether they asked him about Mane or something, and he just referenced United. But United have had 32 penalties since August 2018. That's 2.5 seasons. I worked out. He's played 53 games in the league since then, so 32 penalties in the last 53 games. I think Klopp said Liverpool only had, and I looked at it, you're right, 30 penalties since his first game in October 2015. So that's a massive, massive difference. And I was surprised just because I thought Liverpool over the last couple of years have been getting loads of penalties. So I don't know where them first couple of years they weren't getting any. But and I knew United were getting loads, but I couldn't believe how many they've had. And I think Bruno Fernandes has scored 16 penalties since he joined last January. So there's a serious amount of penalties getting given, Brendy. I don't know what's going on. What do you think?
Per Jurgen's losing the plot. No, look, hey, there's times I've watched United, and I'll be honest, like there's times where they've been given penalties, and I'm like, nah, definitely not. But it's the same way. Like I think it's not just Man United. Like it's just every time I'm watching football now, it's sometimes it's hard to see why a decision's been given. But hey, see as long as Bruno's sticking in the net.
There has been soft ones, right? And every team gets them, including Liverpool, right? So Jurgen Klopp just loves to make excuses. You have to put up that now, right? And Mourinho does it. And all them big managers, they're always at it making excuses. And that's why I love Poch, because Poch never made any excuses. It was always great to watch, even in defeat. Every team gets them. And it's, if you look at it, right, they do go down quite easy, United players. But I don't know where they've been told to do it by Solskjaer. But referees are whistle handy at the moment, and they will give any slight contact, and it's a penalty. And as I said, it's very difficult to overturn it. And what I've noticed this year in football, because of the fans not being there, is the amount of screaming from players on pitches, particularly someone like Fernandez. He's always at it. So I think sometimes like that can influence referees, and so we're only seeing it now because there's no fans and we usually can't hear it. But the referee on the pitch probably does hear it because he's close to it. Stuff like that there, I think, can influence referees, and I don't know what it is.
But can, but then sure, you're right about the screaming last night. The guys watching that match, and like, to be honest, I'm not saying whatever, don't they sell it, but like he knew that there was nothing to be given, and then there he is lying on the ground and his hands up, crying to the ref, and everybody's watching, just knowing, no, look, you're lying.
What do you think about Carragher? What do you think about Carragher saying now? Carragher was saying, I think it was last week, any player now that makes a tackle in the box is stupid. He said, as a defender nowadays, he said it's shameful that it's happening. They said, as if I was a coach of a team now, I would say that every one of my defenders do not touch anybody in the box. Don't even try to win the ball. Just stand up. Just stand up.
Sometimes you're watching them, like, see, even like football, just Saturday morning, Sunday morning football. There's nothing drives you more mad than a defender committing himself stupidly. You know, I just think that players are faster now and they're more mobile. I mean, you look at trying to defend against someone like, say, Sadio Mane, because for me, it's probably, like, I'd say the best kind of wide man forward player and the most difficult they mark.
Yeah.
Like, all you can do, try and show him the line and hope that you can maybe give him that wee bit outside and try and win him. But they dive on. No, I agree, it's stupid.
I think last week that was the one time that Walker Peters, from what I seen in highlights, Manny beat him, and he just sort of panicked a bit. And he was lucky because he didn't make a lot of contact, but any more contact and was probably a penalty. If you look at Manny, Manny goes, I think the first one, he sort of, then he tries to fall down after it. And I think that didn't help him. If he had just sort of went down the first time, it probably gets it. Liverpool probably get a, well, they might have got back. I think it was around the 55th minute, so they would have had plenty of time to go on and win it. Had they scored a penalty, so it could have changed the game. But at the moment, they just seem to be getting a lot of penalties. Now, someone that's scoring these penalties, you have to give them credit, because people say,
I'm flipping away from anything about United on the Liverpool.
No. Before we get on the chat about Bruno, actually, one thing I wanted to put into context was, see the way sometimes when there's an agenda against something, right? So a lot of people know, because United are getting soft penalties, every team gets them, but because they're being highlighted, every time they get a soft one, they're jumping on conspiracy theories and stuff like that there. But you probably seen there's a lot of stuff about Harry Kane. You know that backing on the players and stuff.
Drives me mad. Harry Kane, that's the one I hated with him.
Right. But if you look, right, seeing every other game I've watched, it happens all the time. It's not just Kane, does it? But because it's been highlighted about Kane, if he does it once now, it's highlighted. It's the same way everything. See, with penalties and stuff United are getting, it's always now a soft penalty that's been flagged about them too. So
chatting about it's again, I know we kind of says we're going to chat about United and penalties and stuff like that there, but you know, by watching a Spurs match, if that ball is going up and Harry Kane sitting, you know, or waiting on the ball, you know, if there's any contact at all, he's going down. But what I'd say about Kane, where he kind of redeems himself, is that it's good. He's a crafty big player. He's a great big player. But see, when needs be, he'll stick the boot on too. He's a proper centre forward. But it's just, again, it's frustrating watching defenders. They know what he's going to do, but yet they still do it.
I am not trying to justify the backing on, because it is dangerous, right? I'm not trying to justify it. And look, some of the ones I've seen, there's been two in particular I think were seriously dangerous. But I watched Kieran Tierney do it on Saturday. I've watched all our players do it as well throughout the season. It does happen. It's just because it's been flagged against Kane now. I think it's because he got that penalty against Lallana. That's when it really hit the news, and everyone sort of flagging up. He's done it a few times. So I am not trying to justify it, but it is something that happens in football, backing on.
And look, to go back to your point, Bud, about the penalties and stuff, like, I've supported United now, you know, like, what, 34 years, so that's almost two. And it's always been conspiracy theories about United and penalties awarded at Old Trafford, penalties not given at Old Trafford, Fergie crying, all this here.
Fergie time.
It's happening with every team, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that what United have going forward is like really fast players who will go down if there's any type of contact.
Yep.
You know they will.
And you see, same with Salah and Mane too. They do it a lot. It's just not this year. It's just this year they're not getting as many penalties, and that can happen. I think this year, what I would say about it, right, when it comes to United Liverpool, I think Liverpool over the last couple of years. Now, I'm not taking away how good they've been, but there has been times in games where luck has felt, in terms of penalties, has went their way. This year, their luck's completely out. Things that were happening, like they're not getting any lucky goals. They're not getting so many penalties. They're getting injuries left, right, and centre. They've been very lucky over the last few years with injuries. So when you compare the two, and United maybe over the last couple of years, see that game against Villa. Villa must have, United must have a few chances, but Villa must have a few as well. And in probably recent seasons, United probably don't win that game. But this year, as you say, mentality-wise, and as well, I think United are getting that wee bit of lucky need to go on and win a league. I'm not saying I think they'll win it, but I think things are going for them. So it's very easy to sit and say, oh, United are getting this, United are getting that one. It's not going your way. When United were getting so many penalties last year, Liverpool didn't really care because they were top of the league. So
they were the league won by Christmas. Let's be honest, like.
So we were chatting about penalties, but one man that's been picking them, as I said, you have to give him credit because he can get as many penalties as you want, but some players must a lot of penalties. You only look at Jorginho at the moment. I think he's missed his last 5 penalties for Chelsea, so it's not as easy to have penalties as people think. But how good has Bruno Fernandes been? You're talking about a player that's come in. He's made a massive impact. They were talking about it last night in Monday Night Football about him comparing him to Eric Cantona. Premature, probably, but it's similar type of signing where it catapulted United, and he's completely changed United's fortunes since the form table when he came in. I think Liverpool are second. To Liverpool now that could have changed over Christmas with Liverpool dropping points, but they're neck and neck with Liverpool since last January in terms of points. So how big an impact has he had, and could he be the difference between United winning the league this season?
Mine's first game against Wolves it was actually, we were away in
0-0 draw, wasn't it?
Oh, there was a poor draw. And I was like, jeepers, I was expecting a bit more. But what I would say before he came, and hey, I'm not a big believer in stats, but when I heard about his stats, but for Porto, and the fact that United still haven't jumped at the chance to sign him the summer before, and then Spurs were actually linked with him. I was like, no, this can't happen. It doesn't matter what league you're in, and obviously just to kind of reinforce these stats for him. They're massive, and it's just that you're just talking about goals and assists. The main stats: 17-18, 33 matches. 11 goals, 8 assists. Now that's for a midfielder, right? 18-19, 33 matches, 20 goals, 13 assists. 19-20. Now this is his stats with Porto. She's 17 games, 8 goals, 7 assists. Then we United, 14 matches, 8 and 7. And then 2021, there's 16 matches. And this is the Premier League. 11 goals and 7 assists. And the Champions League, 6 matches, 4 goals.
I think the only thing he got wrong there is I don't think he scored many goals for Porto. I think he scored them for Sporting Lisbon. But they are really, really good stats. In case anybody's thinking for Porto. But it was Sporting Lisbon. But I mind seeing some of the goals because I mind Spurs being linked with him. And I think it was just a money issue. I think United might have paid about 65 million. I think Spurs wanted to pay about 40 or 50. Pochettino wanted him. Pochettino wanted a lot of players. Spurs, Grealish, Maddison, Mane, Van Dijk. Spurs went and signed cheap options and paid the price for it. But he was scoring goals. I mean, some of the goals he was scoring were from 30, 40 yards. And he's a great striker, and he just seems to pop up with goals as well. His vision, he's an all-round player. The only thing about him that I probably don't like is he does go down while he's in. He can be hard at times to watch. But picking that out, he's a seriously talented player. And people have been comparing him to De Bruyne this year. We're going to get into it later on. But you can't put him into that bracket now. We're going to leave it until they're on the show. But that's just the draw them comparisons with Cantona and De Bruyne shows you the level he's at. I don't think even Liverpool fans don't think they would debate how good a player he is. And when they play United in 2 weeks' time, that's going to be the player they're going to try and stop. They'll fear him just as much as Liverpool or United fans will fear Mane and Salah. But no, he's a fantastic player. And them stats, that's over a consistent period of 3 or 4 years. So you're looking at players that produce over 3 or 4 years. You're looking at like some Messi, Ronaldo, players like that. It gets so good
And you're right,
stats.
it's for Sport in Lisbon.
I have. I
No, do
only
you know
knew
what I
that
like
because
about it?
we were trying to sign
United,
him and only watching videos of him.
United were always missing, definitely, like, see, since, um, well, I suppose they always had that kind of personality in the dressing room, that somebody that, I mean, you probably watched that documentary, Spurs, and, wait, like, what do you call it? At all costs or something.
Uh,
What do you call it?
All or nothing.
All or nothing. And there's a moment in that there where it shows you Lloris getting on the
Done.
Son, and he goes in and just literally grabs him by the throat. And there's nothing, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done for the club. Everyone has a job.
Yep.
You see Fernandes getting on the defenders, you see him question it, he doesn't care. And his interviews afterwards, it's never about himself. It's
Yep.
always about what's best for Man United. And he seems to be almost privileged to be there. And he knows how big a club United are. And he's going to do his absolute best to drag them back to where I think they belong. Like, maybe not winning every year, but they definitely belong to top and competing every year. And we haven't been doing that. And that rubs off. And you see a boy like Pogba, that's the kind of role he should have had, but he didn't do it. And now you can even see him kind of looking towards Fernandes as like the man in the team.
I think that Bruno Coman's got, I'm not saying Pogba's got loads and loads, because Pogba's a talented player. It's just that we're trying to get it out of him. From the games I have watched, I'm not saying he's a world beater, because I don't think he is. I think a player that wants to turn it on and wants when he can, he's inconsistent. He's not in that bracket for me anymore. But do you think Bruno Coman's got a bit more to Pogba? He's doing it a bit more often, and he's maybe playing a bit better.
He's got everybody. And I think what he's got with Pogba is that he's Pogba kind of. It doesn't matter if Pogba's in the team now or not, but there's a massive difference if Bruno's not there.
Yeah.
He expects everyone. Not they're never been all Roy Keane, but he expects everyone they play their part, and if they don't, he'll let them know.
Yeah.
And Pogba, because he's more kind of egotistical, he will, like, he's kind of looking and saying, right, I need to do a wee bit more here. And everyone knows Pogba can play football, but he's just not. He's not a man. He's not. Bruno's a man, and he'll get stuck in. He'll dig deep. He'll not blame other people if he's not. Like, he'll blame himself if he's got a bad game. Whereas Pogba, it's body language. That's infectious in a pitch.
I think
it rubs off.
The word we're looking for is mentality. I think mentality's got a strong mentality. Fernandes, he'll not sticks or down. He'll not just drop it and away Pogba times. Near getting bit 2-0, he'll just drop his head and game over. Whereas Bruno, he's a different type of character, and as a type of Roy Keane, as you say, I'm not saying he is Roy Keane, but he's not going to eat defeat as out of the question for him. He really wants to do everything, not just for himself, but for United as well. And the last person I want to talk about, with United, for me, I think he's been seriously harshly treated by the media, by rival fans, and even some United fans in general. And that's the manager, Solskjaer. So, what's your opinion on him? And what do you think about all the sort of fans and the media sort of on his back as soon as you lose the game?
No, I agree. I think, there's nothing more powerful. See the English media. They're really powerful, and they can really turn a screw onto somebody. I mean, you just look at the managerial examples from, especially like your Chelsea, your Artetas, Arsenal, your Solskjaer. They know how to turn a screw on. United fans, for me, and like, I am one, but I find that we are definitely the most fickle bunch of people, and there's a vast majority of us that don't understand football. Just putting that out there, and they always quote things that are like statistics that have been said about, oh, this is our worst start in so many years. United needed major surgery, and they needed major surgery from Fergie's last year. And bar none fire Robin Van Persie, United were always going to have a bad patch and starting to decline. I think that they got on David Moyes. They I think he was just he was over his head.
I think he was a big guy.
Van Gaal, for me, like, looking at who the Van Gaal wanted to sign, he wanted to sign Harry Kane, who'd only come on the scene. He wanted to sign Sadio Mane. He knew what he wanted in, but again, wasn't given enough time. And then you've got Mourinho.
I think never on Van Gaal, right? I think he criticised the players a lot, and Mourinho obviously did the same. I think that style of manager is very difficult to survive in this game. Like, when things go wrong and he sort of lost the players a bit, and he's criticised the players a bit. No, I'm not saying you can't criticise players, but do it in a way that doesn't make the media. He was coming out after games and criticising players. Mourinho, we seen what Mourinho did with Shaw. He almost bullied Shaw at times, and that filters through the dressing room. Because that's your team at the end of the day, and you're going to stick up for him. So I think that's exactly. And I said before in the last show, Mourinho needs to be careful when he does start calling out players again, because it only ends one way now in modern football. So I think you look at them managers, that Moyes, experienced manager, Van Gaal, experienced winner, Mourinho, experienced winner, and you think, right, they've had the reset button. United were always going to do it so they give Solskjaer that chance. Now they probably expected just to go until the end of the season. They obviously made a great start and they ended up giving him a job. But when they give him that job, they knew there was going to be rough patches. They knew it was a reset, time to reset, and they were going to give him time to rebuild. So, as you say, United were in a mess, and I think he's done a really, really good job. I know he's lost a few big games like semi-finals and finals. Semi-finals. He hasn't made a final yet. But there's a good chance coming up tomorrow night. But you have, just because he hasn't won a trophy doesn't mean there's not been any improvement on the field.
There's direction, and that's the thing that there wasn't before. There's direction. You can see what he's trying to do, and I think that he's bringing through young players. And I'll always be well defensive of young players anyway. But look at, like, even going to those United forums and they're slagging Solskjaer, they're slagging Scott McTominay, they're slagging Greenwood.
Yeah.
Solskjaer brought on, like, and Harry Maguire got a bit of flack too, but I'm a big fan of Maguire. I'm a big fan of David De Gea. The players he's brought through, look at Jatele has improved the options there now at fullback.
Good player.
He's brought in Bruno. He got stick for signing Cavani, and Cavani has scored goals. He's a proven goal scorer, but got stick for signing.
He's a game changer.
So no, I think he's done a good job. He's not there yet, but we're getting there, and time will tell. But I think definitely he needs a bit more time. He could go this season without winning a trophy. I thought that he was very naive in one game, and that was the one away to Leipzig.
Yeah.
I think they went there trying to kind of, and that's Man United don't go anywhere to defend. Man United should be going, right, we're going to take the game D, and it's too little, too late. But he'll learn from that.
Every manager makes mistakes. Yeah, even the best managers. I mean, if you're going to go down that road, you're going to have nobody in charge. But just to wrap it up, United chat. I'm not going to ask you. Think what do you think they can win it first? Can they win the league this year?
They can win it. And if they do win it,
strange season, I don't know.
It's not going to be a symbol of United being the best team. I just think it's going to be a symbol of there's no crowds in stadiums. It's a really weird year, and they've just taken advantage of a situation that's arisen. For me, Man United are about another 2-3 seasons off where I would want them to be, and that's seeing those young players that are coming through, the likes of your Greenwoods, turning into world beaters. McTominay's got a bit to go, where they can go and dominate teams and do it consistently.
See, just to put sort of social on the mix for a wee bit. I know you're a big fan of him. I'm not saying I'm a massive fan of him, but I do think some criticism of him was unfair. For you in general, how long would it be? How much would it take you to turn on him? If say he didn't, what would be the cutoff point for you?
For
Solskjaer.
For Solskjaer.
For you to go, no, he's not the right man anymore.
Well, I think that the bottom line is Champions League qualification, and if we don't get that, then that would take a massive, because they got the Champions League qualification. They did ruffle a few fellers this year, and I'm happy with that.
I think they'll be top 4, at least.
But they need to make at least top 4, and they need to kick on, and just the results then just start to kind of come around. And
the one thing I would say. He could do one on a trophy this year, because it does take a bit of pressure off him if he does want it.
I see if United if United are still challenging for the Premier League come Easter, I don't really care if they won a trophy or not.
No, I know what you mean. You'd take that all day, eh? So hey, moving on.
No.
We're gonna assess some of the other challengers here. Now, watch this game on Sunday. To be honest, I was quite surprised at how it went. I thought it would be quite cagey. Both teams sort of couldn't really afford to lose, in my opinion, where they were in the league. Now, obviously, Liverpool losing has sort of give them, or the team that's lost, a chance to come back. But it's so tight. And with Man City's situation, We had COVID and injuries. I thought Chelsea, this is a perfect opportunity to bounce back after the results they've had. City absolutely wiped the floor with them. And it's when I seen the teams, to be honest, De Bruyne playing as a false nine, but Pep lost his head. But in the end, it just turned out to be a complete masterstroke. And not so much, you could put De Bruyne up against, if they played Burnley on a false nine, it would be completely different because Burnley would be camped in their own half. It'd be very difficult to break them down. Chelsea sort of played in their hands a bit because they sort of went gung ho. And just to look on it, we've seen a situation in the first 10 minutes of that game. Now, Chelsea are actually on top in the first 10 minutes, and there was a possible penalty shout. And I thought this was a penalty. I think it was Rodri come under the back of, was it Werner? I can't mind. And he went down in the box. It looked like a penalty. VAR didn't agree, and City basically took over after that. De Bruyne must have a good chance, but then they scored 3 goals quite quickly, and they were totally taken apart. And it could have been a cricket score. See, I think was it 9-0 Leicester won against Southampton last year. It could have been somewhere in the first sort of 60 minutes. It was seriously it was savage. Some of the chances they were creating. But just on that, people have been saying now Man City are back, and they're now the new title favourites. Well, what do you think about
that? They were unreal against Chelsea. But for me, I don't think that really says much. Because Chelsea, I don't know, you can't really compare it. If they go and do it again, but they played against United, and it was the first time I watched the Man City team afraid to play football. It was almost like they were afraid to take a risk against United, and I was like, jeepers. United must have something
I think the week before Spurs beat them 2-0, and they went to Spurs and played good football, but they were so open to the counter attack, and Spurs rocked them with them 2 goals. So I think he went there and you really had to change it because United are quite, apart from Spurs, are probably the best at it, counter attacking. So he was obviously very aware of that. And if you look at United's results against City over the last couple of years, they've been doing them on the counter attack. So Pep obviously looked at that and thought we can play the same way.
Yeah. No, they played unreal against Chelsea, but hey, the other part about it is they're still very much in the title hunt, and they haven't really started this year.
Big time, and that's the final.
Man City for me are always. I know Liverpool were last year and the points that they accumulated, but for me, Man City is always going to be a team that everyone has to beat.
Well, the way they played was excellent.
But they absolutely are, and I think you're right about De Bruyne. He was just, you can't really describe him on Sunday. It was just, you just couldn't play him. Different class.
See that header he plays through. That is so difficult to do. To get the width the way he did that, it was incredible.
His balance and everything, at how he shifts the ball, both feet. His passing's always weight perfect.
Yeah.
He's shooting. Like even that Sterling chance came back off the post.
Nice
touch. But how you look at that there, if that there happens, like I think the way to look at it, if you look at a D&D football, someone comes back off the post, like 90% of the players going to bounce off their shin pad and out, but they just retouch.
If that's Mr. Sissoko, it's happening in the car park.
But players putting them under pressure, took it down, one touch, side foot, boom. It was class.
It was just quality. Now, the one way I look at it, right, Micah Richards was absolutely having a wank fest on Sky after the game, saying that, oh, Man City are the new favourites and you can never write them off, and Brad Keane was shaking his head as usual. MTR funny, Richards is completely out of his depth by Roy Keane, but it is funny the way he winds him up. And he is on for entertainment, as is Roy Keane, because he's the biggest pop going. But no, it was brilliant, like, and some of the crack they were having. But he said that Man City are the new favourites now and you can never write them off. If you look at that game, right, Chelsea were awful, right, and they gave them so much space to play. There was one, I think the second goal where Foden's just standing there, nobody's marking him, and he just pops on the corner. The goalkeeper looks worse than Kepa. I'm not sure what he was doing for that third goal. He was falling over. What's that?
Great finish by Foden.
It was a great finish, but see this third goal where the keeper's just awful. It
was a head of the post, but it was just how quick that I done it. And I think Neville pointed at it a few times, like many times if you watched Azpilicueta been bid for pace.
No, he was roasting him inside out.
The whole day, like.
He kept protecting far too much. I think I was chatting Roy Keane was saying that. Why has he not been playing all the time? Because when he does play well, when he plays, he seems to play really well, and he seems to get unreal team. Now, I did read this week that if it doesn't change, Foden's not going to stay at City. He wants out. So I can see Pep is going to be forced to play him because they're a better team. Plus, it gives them an more creative option. If De Bruyne is not at it, because in games this year, De Bruyne at times has went missing at times compared to recent years. As you say, when he turns it on like that, he's a serious player. But see, looking at it now from a Chelsea point of view, how worried would you be as a Chelsea fan watching that? And the last few games, like if you watch them against Villa and you watch them against Everton and you watch them against, who was the other one they get by? Get mine to the other ones. They were really permanent too. Wolves. Wolves was the other one.
It's to be honest, well, I'll just say it how it is. I'm actually glad what they're going through because I don't like them as a club, Chelsea. But I think that what Lampard done last year was first class. Like no transfer. His first year managing them, and he got them into the Champions League. And he almost put himself into the position now where he got Timo Werner, who Liverpool were looking for. He picked Chelsea. He got that boy Kai Havertz, who I don't know what that boy's supposed to be. Zaya, who for Ajax was top class, and he started with Chelsea relatively well. But he spent that amount of money, and whenever you're getting in the Champions League with spending nothing, and then you've regressed by spending money and bringing in the players that you want, players that are going to make you better.
Almost like you're the architect, your own back guy.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Like, do you think the many teams were after Timo Werner? There's something missing from them. There's a lot of steady players have been really consistent with Chelsea for years, like your Azpilicuetas, but also your Kantes.
I can't believe when I said Kante. I can't remember Kante having a game like that. He was absolutely awful in that game. It was even like some of the simple stuff, like not marking his man and giving the ball 5 yards, he just had a really bad game. I think he was hauled off after about 60 minutes. He was so poor. And it looked to me like what's that?
They put the wee Scotchman on instead.
That's how bad it was. No, it was almost playing like it was like what was it, like 12 against 10, because he was almost playing for Man City, I thought. But it was so poor, and there looks to be no balance in the midfield. And a lot of things, and you see it with a lot of managers, he's chopping and changing his team every week. Lampard, he can't seem to, 1 week Giroud's on, then Abraham's on, then Werner's on. He can't seem to get a formula right. I don't know what it is. Havertz gonna another team. Now the one thing I would say about some of these players he has signed, everybody wanted Werner. Everybody when Werner signed, it was what a signing, right? Hasn't really worked out. Havertz was another one. I thought great signing. I only paid a lot of money for him, but I've watched him for Germany, and I thought he's just the next sort of Mesut Ozil type of player. I know Ozil sort of fell off the wagon at Arsenal, but you look at them first years at Real Madrid and Arsenal when he came in, he was unbelievable. Ziyech ripped Spurs apart in the Champions League. I thought watching him just in the Champions League, I thought really good signing. And to be fair to him, he's been in and out of the team with injury, but when he has played, Chelsea look a lot better. Havertz has obviously been out, yeah, but apparently he had a really bad COVID, and he's still recovering from it. Werner just doesn't seem to suit the league. And if you look at someone like Thiago Silva, he's had a few good games, but he was totally exposed against Chelsea as well. And Chilwell, now a lot of Sam McCorkle watches this, and he actually said when he went, he goes, I don't rate Chilwell at all. He's good going forward, but he can't defend. And he was absolutely spot on about him, because I've watched him a few times this year. And Chilwell, defensively, he's not up to it. So spent a lot of money, but as you say, some of them signings, right? You wouldn't have said they were bad signings. Everybody would have took them. Do you know what I mean? Nobody would have, apart from the Chilwell one, everybody would have took them, our boys.
Well, I didn't know enough about Havertz. Anything I did see of Werner, he did look different level, and I still think he still looks a busy player. Just looks like he's kind of chasing shadows, and he doesn't know they're not playing him right.
When I think about him, it almost compared. Do you remember Soldado came out of Spain? He was ever scoring all line goals, and he just couldn't get it. Like he was doing things like Werner kicked the bloody corner. He kicked the corner flag instead of the ball on Sunday, and his confidence is rock bottom. And it just looks like it's too much from it at the moment. I don't know what it is. He looks very light. Even when he's running at times, it looks like he's going to fall over. I don't know what. There's something not quite right with him. No, honestly, I don't know what it is.
His head's too heavy. But see the likes of Chilwell, boy, like Chilwell, I was not for me. I think bar maybe your centre midfielder, a box-to-box midfielder, your fullbacks should be. They should be the fittest player on the pitch. But first half, man, like Chilwell was he was busted.
Yeah.
Azpilicueta was busted, and it was just like that. That's why Man City need to target them. They look a mess. They've definitely gone backwards, and I'm glad to see it.
Mm. And you know, we were chatting. I was chatting with Arteta a few weeks ago, and obviously they've won a few games. I think chat about Arsenal on you but Chelsea don't give managers as much time as Arsenal do, and that's the big concern for Lampard. They spent a lot more money, under a lot more pressure. And if this runs on in a couple of games, he'll be out. You know what I mean? That'll be it. That's the way Chelsea do things.
Yeah, they're gone anyway. They've probably got a ready-made candidate already there.
Well, the one that's apparently their top target is Brendan Rodgers. Now, I think Rodgers is a seriously talented manager. I think at Liverpool he was very hard done by. Now, he was very naive in that Chelsea game when they lost the league. I know they went to Palace after, but that Chelsea game is where they lost it. They went gung-ho against the Mourinho team, and Mourinho done them. What's that? I
When
was
Stevie let it slip.
we bit the bad luck too, but in that game, as an experienced manager, all he needed was a draw. An experienced manager gets them over the line. He's went to Celtic, obviously. Whatever you think about the Scottish League, he's won all them trophies. But when he's come back at Leicester, when Leicester now play games against the big teams, he's got a different way of playing. You can see they're very tight at the back, counter attack. So I think now he's got the all round. I think he's. If Liverpool lost Klopp tomorrow, I'm not saying he'll go back to Rodgers, but a lot of Liverpool fans didn't say to me they would go for Rodgers again because they think he's a far better manager. So I think in terms of the third best manager in the league, you could probably put Rodgers up there. Everyone likes Hasenfeld, so I'm a big fan. But so if Chelsea, and he's got that Chelsea connection, and you see me Rodgers with Celtic, he walked out in the middle of the season. I think he would do the same with Leicester. You know, got a funny feeling if they go for Rodgers, he might get him.
And he's got a Chelsea background. Like he was with the youth team with Chelsea as well. Whenever Mourinho was there. No, I've made no secret of the fact, but I think of the Scottish football, that's just diabolical. I think that old firm proved it in the weekend. But
you're not a fan.
Rodgers,
you're not a fan of supporting two teams, no?
He went and he made Celtic a far better. He made them they were a really, really good football team. And I know that Leicester won the league with Ranieri, and I think that was. But when you look at the players they had that time as well, Kante was a find and a half.
Yeah,
but I think now the Leicester that we're watching now are a far better football team.
Yeah, definitely, I agree.
Got a lot more to their play. They've got your Madisons. They've got your Harvey Barnes.
Yeah.
And they've
Johnny Evans. Tielemans is a serious player.
Who?
Tielemans.
But sure, I couldn't believe why nobody was after him. Like a bigger club than Leicester.
He was on loan too for that first season. Leicester, he was on loan, and you seen how well he did, and nobody bought him. I couldn't believe it. And then he went to Leicester, obviously. But
he's a proper midfielder. Gives it short, takes it on the feet. He's always got about 3 pictures in his head in terms of what he's going to do.
1 point behind Liverpool. That's crazy. Like Leicester, if you look at the games they've won, they've probably won very difficult games, but they've lost 4 games at home to teams like Fulham and stuff, teams you'd expect them to beat. So I think when they play against a low block at times, they struggle. And they have to play a different way. They played sort of because they're not seen when they won the league. They were seen as just a sort of average team. Teams don't really see Leicester that way anymore. Apart from outside of the top 6, when Leicester go and play Burnley and they play, other teams, they're seen as a force. So they have to try and win games. And they did then. It's probably harder for them now to win the league because of the way they have to change their style a bit.
Yeah.
But that's big kind of Rodgers too.
Sorry?
No, that's big credit to Rodgers too. The way Leicester's got that reputation now as well because of him.
Right, and he was brave to do it because he could have sat now and no harm. But if he was still there, you'd probably see Celtic on course for the 10 in a row.
Oh, big time.
But he took a gamble. He obviously had a good conversation with Leicester board, and he was coming to the Premier League where, Liverpool on the rise. Chelsea were obviously going to be a financial muscle. Man United aren't going to stay where they are forever. Arsenal, and you've got Leicester City, and he took that on, and he's done brilliant.
Yep. So, just on that then, Man City, we were chatting about them there. Just to wrap up this sort of part of the show, Man City play Man United now on Wednesday in the Cup. United play City. United's at home. Now City played them. These two played last year in the semi-final. It was actually 2 legs. I think City won the first game 3-0 away. But United,
Yeah.
they won the second game 1-0, and they probably could have got a couple more goals and made it interesting. But the good thing tonight, it's only one leg, so they'll go to extra time and penalties as well. So it's not just straight to penalties; it will be extra time if there's a draw for 90 minutes. Right, it's obviously a big game. We know Pep's record in this competition. It's a trophy he takes very seriously. He'll go with a really strong team. I expect United to do the same.
Yeah.
Because the FA Cup's coming up this weekend against Watford, so he could probably rest players in for the Burnley game. And he'll be looking at that first trophy as well. So it should be almost like a Premier League game. Two full-strength teams going for competition. Now, it's obvious the big reward will be Spurs or Brentford in the final. You would expect it to be Spurs. You'll be in a cup final in April. And it'll be something to look forward to. But just in terms of the game, how big do you think psychologically it is in terms of momentum? So if United were to lose tonight, it does put up, it sort of puts up a bad moment on them. Going that Burnley game, but if they won this tonight, they're on the final of that competition.
They're tomorrow night, are they not? Is Spurs tonight or tomorrow night?
Spurs tonight, City's tomorrow night, doesn't it? City United tomorrow night. So sorry, tomorrow night was tomorrow night. This is the City United game, but how big psychologically could that be in terms of momentum for the winner?
Hey, it's going to be a big psychological boost no matter what. But I don't think it'll apply in terms of the league.
Yep.
But it's a massive, massive game. I fancy United for it, and
What's your prediction?
that's what you're at the minute.
What's your prediction?
Fancy United over 90 minutes.
Very good. And how do you see the game going tonight? You think Spurs will win?
I fancy Spurs. I think Spurs. That's the one thing that Mourinho probably has that bit of craft to play against. Like Brentford, I know pushovers, but I think we hard Kane and
16 games. And to be honest, I would rather be playing like a Newcastle or they've done us a few times, but you take your chances against them again, or a Burnley. But Brentford will probably see loads of the ball. They're a good football side. And you've seen them, they beat some Premier League teams in the competition this year, so they're no mugs. And I actually think they'll win the Premier League next year. Can't see any way they won't be promoted, probably them in Norwich. But I'm not saying that I'm fearful, but I'm a wee bit nervous. We know Mourinho, if he might sit back and let them have the ball, and that could be a nightmare. But I think hopefully we get free. I actually think he's get free as well. I think it'll be a Spurs United final. A great day. Hopefully the bars is open in April. We have no chance if it was in February. With this lockdown, looks like it's going to go on about Brendy. No, let me move on here. Liverpool. Now they're obviously on the show every week because we are chatting with the title race and stuff, and they're the champions. But at the moment they aren't looking like champions. Two draws and a defeat in their last 3 games. Now I thought, see when they beat Spurs for that last minute goal, and then they went into Palace 7-0. Palace away can be a tricky game. But I thought the league was over. Not league was over, but very difficult to catch them. Now they're going to go on a run. If you looked at the games, they West Brom, they Newcastle, back to back. You're thinking, geez, 2 games, they'll rub them apart. That'll be 6 points. And then look what he's happened. A difficult game, but you'd expect them to go on 1 as well. But it just hasn't worked out that way. And if you look at the actual the first sort of 20-30 minutes against West Brom, they probably should have put the game at a side. But that sort of second half performance, they were very, very poor. They were very poor in the first half against Newcastle. Probably should have won the game in the second half, with the chances created. And they were very, very poor last night for the whole game. Really, they didn't really create a lot. I think Carragher was saying Southampton deserved their 1, and they only had 1 shot on target, and there wasn't. And people have been saying about injuries, right? And I do have sympathy losing Van Dijk. He's a massive, massive loss. But Southampton were missing 3 players last night. They were missing their goalkeeper. They were missing Romeo. I think he might be their captain. He plays every game on field for them. And they were also missing Adams, who plays up front wings. So they were missing 3 starting 11 players. And they still managed to put on a performance. So you can't just keep making excuses about injuries. And I do have sympathy losing a player like Van Dijk and losing his partner Gomez. And they've had injuries throughout the season. But they still had 9 first teamers out last night against the team they should expect they won. So at the moment, how do you see it with Liverpool? Well, what's not quite right with them?
I just think, well, look at Van Dijk's going to be a loss for any team. He's a class act. He's a monster of a player. Passing, but in terms of what he brings to the team, he motivates. He backs them up. He's got a presence in the pitch. But I just think there's something else missing from them. I just think they used to be really good at sort of playing basics first. Like I would look at that Liverpool midfield when you've got your Hendersons, even your Wijnaldums, whoever else is on there along with them. And they're just workhorses. They don't, for me, stand out as like world-class technical players. The front three, different class, and the back four, like over the last couple of seasons, have been different class. Your fullbacks, but was it even last night, Alexander Arnold? And I haven't researched this, but I think I heard it on the commentary. Did he give the ball away 34 times?
There's something not quite right, but I was actually chatting. Two of my mates are Liverpool fans. We have a group chat. We're actually cousins, but we're like best friends. But and they're massive Liverpool fans. They're not armchair fans. They support a club through fucking fun. And they were saying to me, sort of what I've sort of been saying as well. They sort of agree. There's no plan B. They've nobody on the bench. Jota's a big must, right? So they're missing him. But there's nobody else on the bench to change the game. So if the front three aren't doing it, teams can work them out quite easily now. If them three are off it. Plus, he said there's no goals in midfield. He said Wijnaldum used to chip on me a few, but Henderson doesn't really score. Never been a goal scorer. Thiago's been in the team with injury. Fabinho chips somebody off, but he's not a consistent goal scorer. So if the front three aren't scoring, there's nobody else. You can see he brought on Shaqiri a lot earlier last night, to be fair, but he's not really been featuring. Origi's not getting a snuff anymore. He doesn't fancy him at all. And as you said, he's been on about 5 subs, but he's never. I don't think he's used 3 subs in too many games this year at all. Klopp, he only used 2 last night again. See, the squad looks seriously done at the moment in terms of options going forward. And as I think I spoke about in the last show, I know they're missing defensively, but they haven't been that bad at the back. Most of the games they scored, or the games they played, they've only conceded 1 goal, which isn't a lot. You know what I mean? As Carragher said last night, they're not conceding goals left, right, and centre. He said they probably do need to sign a centre half for cover because Henderson at the back is not sustainable. Plus, he's left the 2 young boys out, and now psychologically as well, their confidence will take a knock. But at the moment, their front three's not doing it, and it is quite surprising because Salah, Mane have been quite consistent. Firmino, maybe not as he's not as much of a goal threat, but he does set up a lot of goals. At the moment, that front three's not doing it for him, and that's a big issue for him because they've relied on them so much over the last few years.
Do you know where teams have got better playing against Liverpool? And they're nowhere near what the team I'm going to use. It's the type of example I'm saying. Barcelona with a Pep, when you've had your Xavi, Messi, and Iniestas, no matter what, David Villa, them players hounded you down. No matter where he had the ball, they hounded you down and tried to get it back. And Liverpool would always have done that. But there was a number of examples last night where I think you mentioned them too, were Walker Peters, and just even the wee man in the middle. They didn't panic. They used their first touch, they turned. There was examples of Mane chasing boys down and then just giving a wee sidestep. And they're using confidence to play. And I think teams just have to be more confident. I think they are growing confidence when they're playing Liverpool. Yep. You know, they're Premier League players, and whenever them 3 aren't getting the chances or the rub of the green that they would have got before, Liverpool don't have a plan B. But they would always have been able to, again, the mate we chat about Liverpool all the time and United, but they normally were always good at bypassing midfield, playing on that corner, playing a ball up a line or something like that there, and they're just not doing that anymore. They're taking too many touches, waiting, they're turning back. They're almost starting to do what United drove me mad doing for the last years.
I think the fullbacks haven't been as good as they were over the last couple of years, and that's Arnold especially. I think he's having a bit head up this year, and that's only natural because he has been playing at such a high level. I think creativity-wise, they've lost him a bit. Henderson at times as well. I think great player. I think he's seriously underrated. But this year as well, I think he's going back to his old ways a bit. Quite impatient at times. He'll just a couple of times he's just lumping the ball. I watched the highlights back last night, lumping the ball forward towards the end, not really trying to pick anybody out. Where he was always picking somebody out. He's just sort of hitting forward now and hoping something's going to happen. So they've almost run out of ideas. I think on the touch, you can see with Klopp, he looks a bit nervous. Not that he's not fearful of his job, but just in terms of his confidence, it's talk about a knock. I don't think he would be so sure they're going to win the league this year. And I think it's the first time looking at that run of games. With Liverpool, they always bounce back after a draw or a defeat. That's 3 games they've went now. I can't mind the last time they did that. And to be honest, I wasn't going looking for it because it's probably years ago where they went sort of 3 games out of victory. And they've only won 9 games out of 17 in the league. They've had 6 draws, and their away form's been really, really poor. They've only won 2 games. So they haven't lost that many. They've only lost 2, but the draws is killing them at the moment. Only 9 wins. United, they have won 10 out of 16. United have won an extra game, haven't played a less game. And that's what it'll come down to. Draws don't win you leagues, it's wins. So you can almost afford to lose a couple extra if you're going to win them games. As I said, a lot of games have been 1-1. So again, it's the lack of goals that's killing them. So yes, they do need a centre half for cover, but I think they could do with sending a striker, If he doesn't fancy Origi, and Jota's obviously, Jota will come back in when he's fit, but I think they could do an our attacker up front as well.
All right. I don't know. They're just showing missing for at the minute. Again, I'm glad to see them missing something because they were unbelievable for the last couple of seasons. So I'm glad to see them hitting a bit of an obstacle now. But
there was always going to be a time when they're going to have it up. You can't. It's unsustainable to go at that level. You look at Man City for a few years as well. They had it up last year, and they're still probably not back to their best of a few years ago. But it's impossible to stay at that level of hitting 90, 98, 99, 100 points every year.
And that's it. They were unbelievable. They sustained that. I mean, even was it Mourinho says that the year that they missed out, City just put them to the line.
98,
and then Mourinho made the quote then saying that's grand because they're not going to be able to do that next year, and they literally just went and blitzed everyone last year. But psychologically, mentally wise, there's just something missing from them. But that's up to Klopp to get right, and hopefully it takes him a long time to fix it.
You'd be stupid to be back against them coming back on it, because they, over the last few years they've proven that they can got a strong mentality, and I do still expect them to be up there. But I have to say, right, see after City's performance and United won the way they did, I really expect Liverpool to go out last night and put a performance on, because I thought the City game especially would have shook them because they've been the rivals over the last few years, and they've sort of handed the initiative back to City and United now. Because they've got games in hand, and they're playing these games in hand now over the next couple of weeks. So by the time Liverpool play again, United will play their game in hand. When they play United plus City will play their game in hand against Villa as well. So it will look a bit different in a few weeks' time. But it'll be that game against Anfield's going to be huge. But it's the first time. That's big time. But it's the first time I thought that they won't win it. I'm fighting it very hard now to hang my hat on anybody. I've still been saying over the last weeks, I still expect them to play one it. I think it's so hard to call now. I think the winner will come out of the two Manchester teams or Liverpool. I don't think anybody else will win it. I think with Spurs, they're probably the other team that people might say, but I think they rely too much on Kane and Son, and one injury, either one of them, because Kane can't run on behind, so you're going to miss Son that way, and Son won't get any chances if Kane's not creating them. So either injury to them two, and Spurs are in trouble. If they keep them fit all season, they'll have a slight chance, but I think the state of play will eventually come back to bite them. So I think the winner will come out of one of them three, but at the moment, I would honestly say it's a 33% chance each. I could not split them at the moment.
I would say and it's just because it's that messed up kind of a season. But I would say, like Liverpool, they've been crippled with injuries. They've had a dip in form, and they're still there.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? And Spurs, now they're absolutely there, and they're 100% there. There's a couple of teams that are there putting a bit of pressure on, like your Leicesters. And I definitely would not throw them out.
No, I think Leicester, it's hard because of where they are, but I think with Leicester, they're going to lose. See against them teams that'll kill them if they played again. If they were playing, see Spurs and Leicester played the top 6 teams for 38 games, they'd probably be up there because the way their style suit them. But I think United and City and Liverpool, I know Liverpool haven't been doing it, but they still got a bit more about them. They break teams down than Spurs and Leicester do. I think Chelsea, they're going to be out of. I think Chelsea's on a fight for top 4. Funny enough, like you could sort of throw a blanket around that sort of top 8. It's a crazy season. I mean, you could say that although these teams are fighting for the title, there's very little between top sort of 8 teams. They're all in a top 4 fight as well. There might only, but I think at some stage there will be consistency. I cannot see a situation where we get to the last 3 games of the season and there's like 6 teams all within 4 or 5 points of each other. I can't see it happen. I think eventually at least one will break away. At least one. You'd hope it's at least 2 for a bit of a risk for the neutral. But I do expect at least a bit of consistency to be found in the second half of the season some way. The only issue is, I think a lot of teams were looking at fans coming back. I can't see fans back now at all. The lockdown in England's going to go on a bit. I would say probably in March, maybe even April. I don't know how long. So I can't see fans coming back on it. And if they do, again, it'll be small amounts. So we're not going to see anywhere near full stadiums. So it's really hard to call, Brendy, isn't it?
I can't tell what way it's going to go. But I think the objective this year is just, with COVID, is just about getting the season done. And hopefully by next season then can start kind of normalising a wee bit.
Hey, as Roy Keane said, see whoever does win it. they'll not care, because when you turn over your medal, it doesn't say how many points you got. You're the Premier League champions. So I'm not a bit of a big thing. If United won it, I'm sure Liverpool fans will say, "Oh, well, it's not a proper season." No, it's still a proper season. So no, I'm really in terms of, I think the quality is poor, but in terms of excitement, it is quite good. There's so many sort of teams on my chance. So last team we're going to touch on this week, Chelsea, because they've won 3 games in a row. That's how crazy the season is. Arsenal were in a relegation battle sort of 3 games ago, and now they're only 10 points off the top. I'm not saying they're in the title race, but they've an outside chance at top 4 at least, only 6 points off. So for you, have Arsenal turned a big corner with them 3 results, or is it just very favourable? I know they've Chelsea, but the last 2 just very favourable fixtures, and there'll be much bigger tests to come for them.
I like what Arteta's trying to do, and I think that me and you, like anytime I've passed you, I've already said about our views on Arteta's very different. But I do see what he's trying to do, and like he's bringing young players in. I think he knows what he needs, and he will. If he doesn't get time, it's a joke. But they do need to stick with him. It's not his fault either, but how the English media get carried away. Talking about him being like the Messiah and stuff, and what he's done, and then like after 4 or 5 weeks, then talking about him, man, like he's out of his depth, and he's just Pep Guardiola's puppet. But no, I like what he's doing. He's got really good young players there. Wee boys, is it Saka?
Saka's my favorite. Do you know what? The one thing I would say on it, right, is, and as you say, different views. It's not that I have different views on him. I actually do like Arteta as a coach and stuff like that.
You do.
No, I've said on the show, I think where I was critical of him was there was people making excuses for him when they were sitting 15th in the league, sitting 3 or 4 points off relegation. And I'm thinking that team is not a team that should be down there. And I thought he was very lucky to get the time he did because of where they were in the league. I think if they were sitting around 10th, I would say I write the season off, give them a chance, as long as they're competing. But they were getting beat by Burnley at home and stuff, and I thought, geez, it looks seriously bad. But stuff like he was doing last year, I thought, fair play to him, he done really, really well. He came in, he looked really, really good, and I thought, as I said on the show with Stephen, like Arsenal fan, come on from Arsenal Derby, I said it was when they won that FA Cup last year, the first time I sort of feared Arsenal. The last 4 or 5 years, I thought, geez, Arsenal could be back under him, but obviously went the other way. And as you say about young players, he did bring Saka's been playing, but the likes of Smith Rowe, he hasn't been playing him. He's only brought him in for that Chelsea game. So I don't think their team was full of youth. Still playing the likes of Bellerin and Xhaka and El Neni and boys like that. So he was playing the boys that got Emery sacked and obviously down tools under Wenger. So I thought nothing's really changing. He's brought Smith Rowe in. Obviously Martinelli's come back from injury. And he seems to be fair to him, he seems to have got the best out of Kieran Tierney. I'm surprised at how well Tierney's doing. I thought he was a decent player, but I'm really surprised at how well he's come on. People are actually saying he's the best left back in the league, and we're going to get on to the best 11 in the league, and people actually put them on there with Robertson now, and that's big credit to Arteta and Tierney. So no, I have to say, apart from them that we have with Arsenal, I'd love to see Arteta get time and picking the Spurs thing out of it. If I wasn't a Spurs fan, I'd be saying, geez, I'd love to see Arteta do well, because you like to see young coaches get a chance. Obviously, me being a young coach myself, it's great to see young coaches getting a chance. And it's not just in England, League of Ireland, there's young managers as well getting a chance. So no, it is good to see.
No, that's it. Hey, it's about giving them time. I just think that sometimes there's teams that just sort of run away with themselves. Like Liverpool were long overdue a title, like 30 odd years. Chelsea, like Lampard, up in form, after last year, but like they suddenly expect that they're going to kick on. Arteta, I think Arsenal's, it's all about staying in the ship, and I think he's doing all right considering what he was left. But there's a new model now where I think chairmen and owners are getting a lot more craftier in terms of their appointments, where the best type of people they put under that post, if you're looking to just stay out of the ship and sort of hold things together, you've got your Solskjaer players that have a connection with the club and the fans. That fans will be more tolerant of bad patches, and that's what's going to, well, other than Chelsea because of the owner, but more often than that, it's the fans are going to give them time because they've got a soft spot for them.
He's only playing with Arsenal, right? The young players are doing really, really well. Say like Saka and Smith Rowe's come on, they've done really, really good. That second goal Arsenal scored on Saturday against West Brom, the way they rocked them apart. I know it's West Brom, but it was really, really good. It was almost like rolling back years for Arsenal. But the one big concern with him was Aubameyang. He's on a big contract, and he looks to be completely short of confidence. He's not scoring goals, and Lacazette's come onto the team now, and Martinelli's come on. There's calls for him to be dropped by Arsenal fans, and I've watched them. In the last few games, Arsenal played really, really well, but he's probably the only player that hasn't played well. Because even like, I think Aubameyang, you know what you're going to get with goals and stuff. I think his all-round play is not that good. He does give the ball away quite a lot, and and at the moment he looks at, from what I've watched of him, right, he looks like that type of player that, I'm not saying he's in a massive decline, but he looks like he's lost a yard of pace. I think he is about 31, coming 32. Where do you see it with Aubameyang? Do you think he will get back to his best and it's just a duck, or do you think they could have a summer situation the Ozil there where it's just a steady decline of the player?
I just think, I just think with Aubameyang, I think it's madness to criticise him, given what he's done. That man knows where the net's at. I think it is just a bad spell for him at the minute. But he's a world class striker.
No, he's a great finisher, and I'm not writing off that. I'm just saying, do you think so? You're back, and you will think he will get back to his best at some stage this season?
Aye, of course.
You think they drop him on the bench? You keep playing him, or do you think you could do away with your break?
I don't think there's any harm in dropping a player. And like you look at I'll just use United as an example. But you look at the examples for Rooney. I mean, Rooney went through bad patches where people were saying, "No, he's done," and then he came back then and just he's their all-time top scorer. Great players have dips in form, unless you're like a Ronaldo or a Messi.
That's actually a great comparison you maybe Rooney, because there was times where he had bad spells and he was brought out of the team, and there was issues with contracts. Somewhere like Aubameyang, he signed the contract, come back, but no, really good comparison there, Brendy. And just to wrap up Arsenal, where do you think they'll end up? Do you think they're I see the way the league is. Do you think they have an inside chance now, top four, if they get on a run of form?
I can't see them getting in the top four. I just think that there's that wee kind of. I think you've got your Leicester, Spurs, United, Man City, Liverpool. I think that's your five. That's your five most likely.
So what's the top four going to be? What's the order? What do you think?
I may as well. United's going to win the league.
Right.
Then you've got Man City. Liverpool, and I'll throw Spurs on there just because you're hosting.
I want an honest opinion.
I do think that's a top four.
Be interesting.
Right. I just think you can't write Leicester out of it, but I think that's realistic. What the top four is going to be.
Down 5 teams, the teams fighting. No, that's fair enough. I can't call it. I'm honest. I don't want to be flipping on flat bags at the moment. I don't think they have Liverpool a few weeks ago, but at the moment it's the first team I doubted them. I think if they can find the team you would expect to find consistency, it's just so hard to predict at the moment. And you're looking at 17 games and they haven't found it. So you always after the United game, you'll start to look at the table. Everyone will play each other once near enough. They'll play roughly 18, 19 games. And that's when you'll start looking at it and think everyone's played everybody. There will be a couple of teams that all games in hand, but it's the best time to look at the table and everyone sort of played each other and trying to predict where it's going to end. But hard to know. I think United's going to have a big opportunity in the next week. If they can beat Burnley in that game, I think if he's really dropped points against Burnley, it'll be criminal. I think that's a game that he'll not even be thinking about Liverpool. He'll be thinking about that Burnley game. That's a must-win game because even if he won that there, and you can go and get a draw at Anfield, that's a great week. You know what I mean? So hey, special thing on the podcast this week. Me and Brendy have had a few disagreements on players about who the best is. So just thought since he's coming on, we're gonna have we're gonna get to the best player. But just as a thing, we're gonna do the best. We think our best 11 in the league. Now, just before we end it, I think there's a few players that pick themselves. So I'm just going to get on there. I think Alisson, goalkeeper, can't be questioned. Van Dijk, centre half, can't be questioned. The 3 in midfield, I'm going to go with 4-3-3. I think Fabinho, seriously outstanding defensive midfield player. He's on the any team in the league. I think De Bruyne and Bruno Fernandes in front. I think you can play with them too if you've got someone like Fabinho in behind and Harry Kane up front. So just on them positions, the spine of the team. Would you disagree with any of them there?
I'm just writing them down here. So Alisson nets.
Van Dijk's my first centre half. I'm not sure on the other one, to be honest, because there's so many options on there.
Kevin De Bruyne, Fernandes,
Fabinho, Bruno Fernandes, and Kevin De Bruyne as a midfield 3. and Harry Kane up front.
What are you playing, a 4-3-3?
4-3-3. Like, do you think any of them positions, any of them players I've picked in them positions are debatable? I don't think they are. The other ones will be, but I don't think they are. I think they all pick themselves.
I'm not so sure about Fabinho. I think Kevin De Bruyne and Fernandes absolutely pick themselves, just given their.
Right. See, when it comes to Fabinho, right? Who do you have to have a defensive midfielder in there? So who would you pick in front of him? That's the thing. You can't play V3. You can't have an hour attacking midfielder in there. I would love to, but you can't do it.
No, I'm just thinking. I'll come back to that one.
Come back to that one. Right. So you're not in agreement there. Now I'm going to get it to you work away here, right? So right back, who would you put as your right back?
I think that from the goalkeeper to the three defenders, like definitely from Liverpool, and I know they're going through a bad patch, but for me, Robertson left back, Trent right back, like Virgil centre half, and again, it's going to be a controversial one, and it's not because I'm a United fan. It's because before we even got him, and I think definitely he's massively underrated. And then I think it is wrong, but I'm going to go with Maguire.
Right. I'm going to go ahead. Right. I agree with you. Right back. I'm going to go with Alexander-Arnold. I think he's had a bit of that this year. There's all right backs on there. I think people have been saying about Reece James having a great season. I think he's went out of the team there. I don't know he was injured. He was having a good season. Lamptey at Brighton's caught a lot of the eye. He's playing on a team that's lower in the league. But there's talk about Bayern Munich being after him and stuff. Lamptey from Brighton, he's been sort of free on there. And I'm trying to look at it. I'm trying to mix form with class. And when I mean form, I'm trying to go over the last sort of 18 months to I don't want to be going back further than that. So I think it's very difficult to leave Alexander-Arnold out, and I'm a massive fan of him. I think his creativity, his passing, his free kicks, brilliant player. I want him on my team. The centre half, I'm going to go with. Again, this could be controversial, but I really like him. He's playing at Wolves. He's also an England international. I'm going to go with Connor Cody. I think he doesn't make mistakes at all. He's great on the ball. I'll be surprised if he's playing at Wolves next year. I think he's obviously got a Liverpool connection as well. I'd be surprised if they didn't go from him in the summer. I think it'll be very difficult to get him in January. He would be the type of player that could go on that team. I'm going to go with him. And then the left back, I'm going to go with Kieran Tierney. I think he's had a great season. I think he actually done all right last year as well, but it's been highlighted this year. Robertson's a good player, but I'm going to go with Kieran Tierney. I like him a lot. I think he's just in terms of his mentality as well. Like even now, right, turning up short sleeves, snow, getting Arsenal. I'm surprised he will be Arsenal captain. I can see him being. They'll not take it off Aubameyang this season, but there will be a change next year. I can imagine at the end it's pre-season. Tierney will get the armband. I just love everything about him. The only thing I don't like is playing for Arsenal, but I'm going to go with Kieran Tierney.
No, I agree. Tierney's a great player, and I liked him at Celtic. And he was absolutely always going to be a Premier League player. But if you're just going, if you're thinking back over the last, say even over the last year, and I'll even just say about I was looking at Robertson even when he was playing with Hull, and he was always going to do it. And it's the same principle with Maguire. When I was watching Maguire at Hull, he was always a great big player, stepping out with the ball. But so I would say at the minute Robertson does just kind of hold his own.
I can understand. I'm sure everyone's thinking, geez, how can you leave Robertson out? And it's not even that. It's just I think Tierney's defensively, he's very good as well, and he's good going forward. And I just think that I'm not saying Robertson's having a poor season. I just think Tierney's been that good this year. It's very difficult to leave him out. And I think he was probably up there last year as well. His Liverpool run away the league, he wasn't getting the credit that he was. But no, I would definitely put him on. I think he's done really, really well this year. And just as I said, it's not just his ability with the ball, it's everything he does off the pitch. And as I said, mentality-wise, he was Celtic's captain as well. No, I would definitely have him on there. As I said, there's not much in it, but it's just an opinion. And I can't argue with Robertson, you as well. So moving on, midfield. That midfield three, you don't have any issues with?
Not bad. No, I just think in terms of picking themselves, absolutely De Bruyne and Fernandes. And if I was thinking, now that you kind of challenged me that one with Fabinho, but I would go with that just in terms of who I'm thinking at the minute.
I think Fabinho's had a really good season at Spurs, but I think it's very difficult to leave Fabinho out in terms of consistency he's been over the last few years. He doesn't like
that title.
Aye, no, definitely. Right, so Big time striker. Harry Kane. Do you have any arguments there?
No.
I think it's very difficult to leave Kane out because he's the all-round player in terms of goals, assists, leadership. It's just if you don't want to play against a striker, will be him. I think it's very difficult to leave him out. This is giving me nightmares. The two wide men is near impossible to pick because there's so many good players. I'm just going to rhyme off a few here. You've got Salah, Mane, Rashford, Grealish. Yeah, I think he's a great player. Son, Aubameyang. It's very difficult. Now I've picked two. I've probably left a few out there. And you've also got like Barnes, Vardy. Throw anybody out. There's so many players. Who's your two? Who's in the right and who's in the right?
It doesn't matter where they play because they can interchange. But the two players alongside Kane would be 100% Son and Sadio Mane.
You know what? This game, I've chopped and changed so much, right? I think based on this season alone, you can't leave Son out. But if you're taking it from the last 18 months, you possibly could leave him out. He didn't have that great season last year. I know he was away in international, he was away with the army and stuff. And that might have broke up his season, and he was injured. But Mane, based on this season, you couldn't really put him in. But if you tackle on last season, he has to be in. Salah, I think in terms of consistency, he's the league's top goal scorer with 13 goals. I know he's had about 8 up recently. It's very difficult to leave Salah out based on his stats. Whether you'd like him or not as a player, in terms of, I think Mane can be a lot better to watch as a player. But in terms of production, Salah's numbers are very hard to leave out. So unfortunately, I can't leave Salah out, right? I can't leave Salah out based on that. And as you know, I'm a massive fan of Grealish, right? But it's very difficult to fit him onto this team. As I say, I would love to put him on. But for me to get him on the team, you have to leave Bruno or De Bruyne out. You just can't do that. And I do really rate Grealish as a player. And I think he's going to be a superstar. I think, as you say, stats can be misleading. His stats aren't as good as Bruno's, but he's actually created the most chances in the league this year. You look at some of the chances, but Watkins is must. Grealish has been setting up loads of them. And his assists probably he'd be up there with Kane, if not higher. And I think he will be at a top team next year. One of the top sort of Liverpool, United, City. Has to be. He's too good. Villa, and Brian watches the show. Brian will be raising about that, but Brian will understand how good Grealish is, and I think he's a special player. So with the cost,
but he's not. He's nowhere. Hey, I don't think it's even close in terms of when you're thinking about. Like, look at Mane last night. Liverpool lost, but hey, he was a constant threat, and as a United fan, wanting Liverpool to drop points last night. Anytime he got the ball one-on-one, especially even whenever there was two players, I was absolutely kicking it because I thought he was going to do something. And on another night he would.
Him and Son do create that fear factor in teams because the way they're so direct, right? So based on what I just done, right? What I just done was Grealish is a kind of different player down to, and you've got the Bruno, you've got De Bruyne, and you've got Harry Kane, who all like they drop off, right? So you've got that creative side, so that's why I left Grealish out. So I thought we need another runner with Salah, so it came down to between Son and Mane, and unsurprisingly, I just maybe it's because I love Son so much. I did go with Son and I left Mane out. I just think this season, I know it could go on last season. I just think this season Son's hitting a new level. He's producing goals week in week out, and he's got a great relationship with Son, and he's creating goals, but not just scoring them. So I put Son on there. So I went with Salah, Kane, and Son.
For me as a United fan, Guy, I'll be honest with you. In terms of like the absolute people that make the list, if I was to pick my player from Spurs for United, it would be Son ahead of Kane.
Really?
I think he's ruthless in front of goal. Like look at the match against Liverpool. Now that Liverpool first half against Spurs was the best passing performance I've seen from a team all season. I know City had their match on Sunday, but for passing and movement, like Liverpool blew Spurs away in that first half, and then in the matter of like one snuff, and Son had in the back of the net. He just it's devastating. And he's a workhorse
every season, but it's just as I said, it's very difficult to leave certain players out, and that's what I find it very difficult to leave Salah out. I think you look at his goal record since he came to England, it's impossible. I think to leave him out. I know you've left him out, and you favour Mane, and I think with Kane, I think as well. as you say, I think if you look away, Kane plays with England, with Rashford and Sterling and stuff. I think Kane will be tailor-made for that United team. And I think City's looking at him too.
He's a crafty big player. He's a great player.
Mm.
He'll get you goals. He'll get the boot stuck on whenever the back's against the wall. He'll soak up pressure. He knows how to slow the clock down. Great big player, but for me, in terms of that fast attacking football, I would go with Son, and then
Mane.
I just think Mane just has. They watch Mane. I just think that he's always occupying the thoughts of defenders as well.
Yep.
And I think that, like, no doubt about it, Salah's a world-class player, but I think you look at those front four of Liverpool from the options if they've got a fully fit squad. You've Mane, Salah, Jota, and Firmino.
Yep.
For me, them four players are world-class.
Yep.
But if I was to pick my pick of having one of them, it would absolutely be Mane.
So hey, that's near enough the show. We're just a recap there. So we agreed on Alisson, Arnold, Van Dijk, Fabinho, Bruno, De Bruyne, Kane, and Son. We disagreed. You favoured Maguire over Cody. Saying Maguire, I think his biggest issue is pace because the way United play, it can be very Cody. Not saying he's slow, but I think he might have a similar problem because on the United, at Leicester, Maguire never really had that problem because of the way Leicester played. But because United play such a high line, those count against Maguire at times. As you say, in terms of his aerial presence, he does score goals too. Right? And I think sometimes he can be unfairly criticised. Then we went to left back. You favoured Robertson over my pick Tierney. Again, very, very good players, and you couldn't argue against the two of them. And then the other one was I favoured Salah over Mane. Again, very, very difficult debate, but I just thought Salah's numbers were difficult. But Brendy, thanks for coming on. Really, really enjoyed the show. Best of luck to you tomorrow night in the semi-final. Let's hopefully Spurs get the job done tonight. I think if he's a friend already put Spurs in tonight, there's City United fans. It's almost like a cup final tomorrow night.
I just put the cry on. I know it always works.
I know why it's happening. Hi, Brendy, thanks very much, and stay safe over the lockdown, man. See you again.
Thanks, Guy.
Top man.
All right. Cheers.